Hello, welcome to this podcast, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Mr. Wolf. You know me as a motivational speaker and a guy that is into books, into poetry. Today, I have a very special guest with me. His name is CL Harmon. He's a mindful life coach, someone whose quotes just not sound good. They carry weight, they carry pain, they carry meaning. And in this podcast, we will try to talk about his life journey, and the books that he's written. We'll just get to know him, about the work he's done. And so, without further ado, hello, sir,
Hi.
how are you?
I'm well. Thank you for having me, Mr. Wolf. Appreciate
Thank
that.
you. Let's just start from the very basics. Before the books, the wisdom and everything, who is CL Harmon and where did you come from, and what's your journey? How did you come into writing?
I come from a pretty simple, modest background, and it was just two really hardworking parents. Small town in the United States. That environment really kind of helped shape a lot of who I am as a person. And then as far as writing, I just always knew that I wanted to write. I just didn't know how to write and how to make a living with it, or how to really use it to help people. I didn't know because I was young. When I was about 19, I got clinically depressed. I became clinically depressed, and I had never been that way before. So it was just flipped my world upside down. I think this is sort of where my journey really kind of started to maybe be, I think, different. I had been very social anyway. I had a good time, and I'd stuff, but I was a good person. I didn't, it wasn't like I was, but I went out and had a good time. But when I got depressed, and I think a lot of people do this, you tend to turn to alcohol or drugs to escape. And I didn't know, and that would have been very easy for me, but it just didn't seem right. I knew that was not going to end well. And so I didn't really know what choice I had. The only thing I knew was I leaned on my faith, which was a Christian-based faith. I wasn't a diehard, type of person. That was just kind of the basis that I had growing up. So when you have all those feelings and you can't understand and you can't escape, and I needed to escape. And so writing became the way I used that. It was just a tool for me to sort of help express myself, because I felt I had sort of isolated myself from everything I'd known. I was, and anyone who's been clinically depressed can understand that. It's different than manic. It's not highs and lows. It's basically, at least for me, it just consumed my life. And everything became that dark bubble I couldn't get out of. And as I started to write, initially it was just very dark kind of stuff because that's what I was feeling. But then after a while, I sort of began to understand that it was very therapeutic and there was a lot of meaning. I was always wanted to be a fiction writer, but this curveball that I didn't expect really sort of put me on a different trajectory. Anyway, so I started from that. I just continued that for a few years. And then as I started to lift out of that depression.
So do you remember what was the first piece of writing, or what did you write? The first thing that you've written? What was it about?
It was interesting because I didn't just write down straight, this is how I feel. It felt natural to me to sort of write it in a poetic type way, and I liked being able to do that.
Poetry.
I liked being able to do that. So it just started from that, and then as I was saying, as I started to get out of that, I really started to be able to see what a tool it could be, because it had helped me so much, being able, but not necessarily to help them to write, but to take what I was going through and what I had been through, and to be able to take that and turn that into something that could help other people. And so that eventually culminated into what are now mindsets. And I worked, and I'd gotten married and had kids and so on. And so writing was not something that was really serious for me. It was it was inside, but again, I didn't know how to utilize it. And so I would just continue to write, and I would share stuff with friends, and they began to tell me hey, I think you have something here. there's something different, unique. And so with that, I began to write, and then eventually I worked my way into the newspaper industry as a writer and reporter, and then that kind of segued into being a freelance writer for different magazines. And so as I was doing this, I began putting those mindsets out there. And that's when I began to realize I was starting to get a lot of feedback. And I knew I had something at that point. And it never started out to be something like, oh, I want to make money from this. It was something that I could use to help people. Because I was putting it out there for free. I wasn't charging people. I would put it out in the newspapers, like if I worked, whatever newspaper I was working for would run them for me, and different newspapers and stuff. And so I really felt like I was really starting to make a difference. And that's what became important to me, because I understood what that's like to feel like you want to give up, to feel like life doesn't have, like God has forsaken you, or however you want to look at that. I knew what that felt like without delving deeper down, without running into drug use or alcohol abuse or whatever. There was a way that you could heal yourself through, or help heal yourself through faith and through guidance. And so that kind of became my thing. I just started to realize I wanted to help people, and there's always someone that needs help. So it just started to work for me.
Yeah, that's true. Speaking of mindset, I've read some of your work. In that you teach that mindset is like a discipline.
Yes.
Like, not in a way, it's not like motivation. So how does someone, build discipline when life just keeps knocking them down? How do you make that mindset to be disciplined?
And that's a great question. So I'll answer it like this. I think we end up in life, because we're so bombarded a lot of times in life with negativity, and things just seem to keep going wrong, and that becomes a norm for us. And so we begin to accept that, myself included. But what I found is that each and every one of us have the power to create positivity. And it doesn't have to be very much, because you build on that. When I decided I no longer wanted to be depressed, when I decided, hey, I don't want to live like this, okay, I stopped thinking about all of the things that helped facilitate that depression, and I started thinking the exact opposite. And I thought, okay, what would make me not be depressed? Okay, because laughing would make me, but I didn't feel like laughing. I didn't want to laugh. But I made myself watch things that were funny on television or see funny movies. I began to condition myself. Okay, and that takes effort. That takes a lot of effort to do that, because you're going against what you feel. Okay, but what I started to notice is that I was building a positivity that life wasn't giving me. Okay, and people give up because they assume that they can't build their own positivity. That's what they assume, right? And so they really kind of stop trying, and they just accept. Well, that's when you're into dangerous territory, because you don't know how to get out of that. And so I've spent my life figuring out how to get out of negative situations. And clinical depression is not easy to get out of. It's not. But I was able to do that because because I made a conscious decision to say, I don't want to be this anymore. And so whatever that is in your life, whatever it is that you feel like, you have to make a decision, and then you have to follow through with doing things. And sometimes those are very difficult things to do. It's as simple as if you don't feel like being around people because you're shy or whatever, then don't throw yourself in a crowd of people, because that's not going to help you. But reach out to one person. You got to take these little baby steps, and you reach out to one person and you say, hey, let's go do something, right? Okay, which is better than sitting at home. Okay, so now you've made one little step. Okay, and then when you get comfortable with that, well, it's that first step. And I think anybody in any kind of situation they're trying to get out of will tell you that first step is always the hardest. But I have found it with a lot of people that I help is that they don't want to take that first step because they're so bombarded by the negativity in their life, they feel like they can't get out of it. Anyway, and so they kind of feel like taking that first step is useless. But actually, it's the most powerful thing you can do for yourself.
Coming to that, we live in a very, especially in the West, we live in a very fast-paced world.
Yes.
We've got deadlines, we've got work, we've got family.
Yes.
We have to be available everywhere. And we have to find that balance, that personal life and work-life balance in order to, I think, to remain healthy. So I want to ask you this question. How can a person know that they are not okay mentally or they're not doing well? How can you tell, can a person detect that on their own, or do they have to talk about it with someone else, or read a book or something?
So that's a lot of things. So let's start with first. This is what I tell people. Okay, everyone, no matter what they think. Okay, at that point in time, everyone in life wants the exact same thing, and that is peace. Now they don't know that a lot of times because you I want to be successful and I wanted this and I want to, but at the end of the day, really what you want peace. Okay, because when you have a sense of peace, then that gives you the strength and that gives you the fortitude to handle all the other things that are going to come through. Okay, now this is where we get in a problem because you mentioned a fast-paced society, right? Okay, if the most important thing to me every single day is peace. Okay, above all other things. Okay, and materialistically in this life is my peace. Now that means I made a conscious decision to make peace my priority. Now there's a lot wrapped up in that. So let me give you an example. When I get up in the morning, when I wake up in the morning, I don't jump up and I don't jump out of bed. I don't jump up and grab my phone or reach over and grab my phone. I don't do that. My very first thing is I pray. Okay, I pray the first thing in the morning. I have some one-on-one time between God and I. Okay, anyway, and I take that time because that initially sets the tone for my day. It is a peaceful conversation. Okay, then I get up. Okay, I don't look at my phone. I don't check my phone. I don't get up and do that. I get up and I kind of start my morning routine and, make coffee and I don't turn on the television or the radio because every single one of those things is a distraction. Instead, I enjoy the smell of the coffee. I enjoy the peace. I enjoy the silence. Okay. There's no chaos in the morning. I don't have any chaos to deal with because I know for the rest of the day, I'm going to have phone calls and emails and people talking to me. I'm going to have that going on all day long. Okay? And so I start my day off with a tone of peace. Okay? There's nothing happening in the world that's in the morning that's worth taking my peace. Okay? And so I don't allow it. But you know what? That's a choice that I make. At the end of the day, I choose what gives me peace at the end of the day. If it's sitting down and relaxing, if it's listening to some nice music, if it's having a coffee or some sort of beverage, and or even watching a TV show that I like or whatever, but that's my relaxing time. And I don't work. I don't take things and say because that's my time. I give myself that time because the world is going to take from you everything it can, and it's not going to stop. And as long as you don't take a stand against that, it'll take more and more. And that's your place of employment, that's your boss, that's your family, even though they love you, they're going to do that. And if you don't say, hey, I need to have my time in order to be peaceful, you're not going to be able to be the best you can be at work. You're not going to be able to be the best person you can be with your family. You're not, because you're going to be living in this stressful bubble that you can't get out of. Anyway, and I know because I did it for years. And I'm telling you, the best gift I ever gave myself was peace. And what I see more than anything else in the world is people don't do that. They don't take a minute for themselves. And anyway, and it's the most cathartic thing. And everybody's different. Like I was telling someone the other day, in fact, this is sort of interesting. I make my bed every morning. okay, before I leave the house. Not because I'm not, the only reason I do that is because when I come home that evening, I can walk into my house or in my bedroom, and it gives me a sense of peace to know that my bed is made, and then I can climb into that bed. Now, that's a simple thing, but that's a gift that I give myself, okay? It takes a very few minutes in the morning to give myself something that's peaceful when I come home. Okay, if you're living a life, and I'm not judging anybody, everybody's life's chaotic, but people live in chaos because they don't stop it. If you don't clean up after yourself, or you don't take care of your responsibilities and view, those problems are not going to go away. Okay, they're going to be something that you face later, and then that becomes this cycle. And so the most valuable lesson I think I tell people is about peace is give it to yourself, because no one else in the world will do that.
Yeah, even let's suppose, like, even we had like a bad day, we can come home to a bed that was already made.
Yes.
And it was made by us, and it would give us some sort of, achievement.
Yes.
At least I made this bed.
Right.
And
you did. Yeah, and that's another very important thing. And I'm glad you said that, because this is something else that I teach. And I have a writing out there somewhere. Sure, Hannah has it somewhere. I'm sure it's published out there. But one of the other important things that you can do is you need to give yourself a goal every day, and not a big goal, not a large goal. It might just be, today I'm going to get my house clean, or today I'm going to run by and pick up something that I needed to pick up. But you give yourself a goal, and you don't deviate from that. You don't deviate from that goal. Okay, and here's why. It doesn't have a big deal at the time, but at the end of the day, when you sit down and you're kind of going through your thoughts, and you're kind of rewinding your day, that accomplishment gives you more than you realize, and you don't realize it at the time. But if you do that every day, just think about this very simply. Think about it like this. You can drift through your life every day for 365 days and basically just drift from work every day. Or at the end of the year, you can say, I absolutely, positively accomplished 365 things this year. I know for a fact, because I accomplished it. Now think about that. It starts out one day, you're like, it's not a big deal. But at the end of the year, and then as that becomes a routine for you, you begin to do that more and more. I set multiple goals for me a day. In fact, my family and my friends tease me because I'm a list. I make lists. So, and I mark that list off because it makes me feel good. It gives me a good feeling to accomplish that and then mark it off. And it might be as simple as making a phone call. That's a very important phone call. But something that you've been putting off, or something that needs to be done every day, you mark a goal. You make it a goal, and you follow through with that goal. And don't let anything stop you from that, because that is a win. That is a win for you. And and small wins are still wins, no matter what, no matter what they are. So I think it's very important that we do that.
Any particular favorite writing of yours, or tell us about any work that you've enjoyed writing the most?
I love writing mindsets. And they range from. There's really no range, honestly. They come from inside. They're taken from every day. But and so there's a lot of those that I'm very proud of. I feel like that they really put a good message. But my favorite work is my book, Chopping Down the Tree of Knowledge.
Okay.
And it's not a mindset. It's not a book of collection of mindsets like my other two books. It's very different. And we can delve a little bit into that if you like, or we can talk about that later. But it's a different type of writing, and I feel like that's probably one of the most important things I've accomplished in my life. I feel like the message is very powerful. I think it's written in a way that it doesn't matter where you come from, or who you are, or what your gender, religion, any of that. I think it's a baseline human, how we feel because of the message that it is. I think everyone that has read it and has been very like, wow, this is a different perspective, which was, I think, an underlying goal was it was never about just trying to reach one religion or one people. It was about reaching everyone, because I don't look at life as that. I think humans separate us. I don't believe God separates us. I believe we're all God's children. Anyway, and so that makes us all siblings. Anyway, and so it's written from a perspective of, let's kind of put down the walls that we build and let's look at it from a different perspective. It talks into the human aspect of how we build belief systems from the time we're born, and what happens at some point in life when those belief systems fail. Because a belief system is how it's how we live our lives. It's how we raise our children. It's how we look at our faith. It's the choices and decisions that we make in life. Everything is based in that. And at some point in life, as happened with me, you find out that it's flawed. Well, what happens? What do you do at that point? And whose fault is it? Is it God's fault? Is it my fault? Is it anyway? And I thought that was a question that I needed answered for myself. And the book is basically written in a steady stream of consciousness that just pours out. And anyway, and I think that I think people can relate to that very well, because everyone at some point in your life feels like, how did I get so far off course from where I started? And I think everyone feels that way at some point. And you're like, what happened? And it has been my experience that most people that I have known in my life are good people. They're trying to do the right thing. They're trying to make the right decisions. They're trying to make the right choices in life, and somehow they end up way off course from where they wanted to end up. And so I wanted to understand why, and that's what this book is about.
That's great. We will dig deeper into that subject sometime later. Climbing out of hell. Define hell. Like, what is hell?
So,
what do you mean by that? Like, do you mean like the prison that we have, like, in our own mindset, that we're stuck in doing something, or like, what do you mean by that?
Yes, you're on the right track. We all have these, you want to call them issues, crosses to bear, demons, whatever you want to call them, right? Anyway, and we feel like we can't seem to get out of those. We can't seem to get out of this routine that we're in. Maybe it's an addiction, maybe it's an illness, maybe it's an attitude, maybe it's whatever it might be. But basically, those things in life become, they begin to seep into every aspect of our life. Okay. Anyway, and what that does is that's basically creating a hell for us that we think we can't get out of, and so we stay there. Anyway, and so mindsets, which is what that book is. It's a collection of those. They're writings about things in life that help us look at situations and things in life at a different perspective, which is really what all mindsets are. It's basically looking at things a little bit differently. Have you ever heard? I think most people can say this, that somebody can say something to you, just maybe off the cuff or out of the blue, and it just sort of takes you back a little bit. It's like, what? It's like your brain just hadn't thought that way. It just, it hadn't kind of gone that direction, and it sort of changes. It's sort of like, okay, well, that just opened up a new pathway. Well, that's what mindsets are supposed to do. That's what I hope they do. And so,
yeah,
I want to lead everyone out. I mean, my ultimate goal is that everyone finds something in a mindset that helps them, something that helps them find that new pathway out of the misery that they're in. They're about helping people see things in a little bit different light than they see them, than they usually see them. And sometimes it can be the smallest thing that sets us on a new trajectory. And that's what I hope mindsets do.
I read in some book or something, I think it was Sherlock Holmes or something, that there are no ghosts in this world except for the ones that you create yourself.
Yes, and I believe that. See, I agree with that. I think that we get we get caught up in something and we fixate on it anyway, and then it becomes a part of who we are. Okay. Anyway, and that, sort of look at it like this. People aren't born unhappy. Something happens to them at some point, and then, or more than one thing happens to them at one point, and then they take that and they fixate on that, and that becomes, then they become unhappy. But they're not born that way. Okay. And nobody made them that way. Nobody came back and, with a magic wand and said, you're unhappy. No, they chose that. Although they didn't want to choose it. They didn't know what else to choose. And so that became the easiest way. And then they just become unhappy. But that's not the way we're designed. But we're also designed to be able to choose another way. You can choose to be happy. The problem is once you become something, depressed or unhappy, or if you feel like you're lost, once you get to that point and you have that realization, you have to figure out it's not easy to go back. And that's where there's a lot of problem. And I think a lot of people, especially today, I think they get to a point where they're like, I don't see a way out. And so they start to give up. But I've been through a lot in my life, and I can tell you there is always a way out. Now, for me, my base is faith. Okay, I mean, I lean on my faith for that. Okay, and I'm not saying one faith or another faith. I'm not saying that. I'm saying because it's something that's greater than I am, and I need to know that there's a God, that there's something that I can lean on that says, hey, it's okay anyway. And then if you fall, it's okay. If you take the wrong road, it's okay. We're going to correct that. I think everyone needs that in your life. You need something greater than yourself to believe in. I think people who don't have that spend their entire lives lost, because I think we're creatures who seek, and we seek for something that, because we all want, something that'll give us peace, something that gives us direction, something that gives us fulfillment, right? I see it in a lot of young people. It's just and I think it's because we are bombarded. Because first of all, we don't slow down enough. They don't slow down enough to actually stop and seek peace. They feel like they're bombarded. There's a lot of negativity and a lot of evil in the world. And that kind of turns into the fact that if they believe in God, it's that God has failed them. I've been there. I thought the same thing. What I found out was, especially writing that book, was that God did not fail me. I just didn't see how he didn't fail me. That was the issue. I couldn't see it because my mind was blocked. If there's anything that I would really like to be able to do, it's to be able to help people understand there is always a way out. But the way is not necessarily with you. Part of it is inside yourself by the choices that you make. The part of it is from something higher, and they have to work in conjunction. But there is no situation where there can't be peace. There's no situation where there can't be fulfillment. It's just finding it. I choose every day to be happy. I choose every day to laugh. I choose every day to say something good about something. I try every day to do something for someone else that I get no benefit from, simply because I want to do it. Simply because it makes me feel better. And we are wired to help others. Now, on that point, I'll elaborate a little bit if I could. I had 2 brothers and a sister. So I grew up in a family with siblings. And when you have siblings, you learn to give, you learn to forgive, you learn to get along, you learn, okay? Because it's what you are, because it's where you are, right? It's the environment that you're in, okay? Well, if you look at the entire world and all the people in it with that same mindset, then that changes who you are, right? Because now, even though I may not know you that well, I still consider you my brother. Okay, I still consider people not. So I want to go. So every day, whether I know someone or not, if I can do something to help them, if I can